stuff. And I mean, now I have my own business, and that's super scary because when I talk to people, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but when I talk to people, it's like they open like big eyes. They're like, "What? You left the company?" Like Live Nation job is pretty secure. It's hard to like let go because they have the workflow pretty well set. You know, like a lot of people have been there for like 10 years plus. So for people to leave there, they either leave because want it or it's hard to get let go from Live Nation. So I left to open my own business.
Yeah.
So now when I talk to people, they like look at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think maybe because of what's going on in the workforce right now.
Yeah.
You know, people are like, why would you leave the comfort of that right now?
Right.
And go do your own thing. But they project themselves, right? Like I would never do that, you know. And
Yeah.
But you're not.
I heard
me.
a lot of that. Yeah.
You're not. You don't know what I need, what I want, what I have, all those things. And until you've sat in my shoes and sat with me and my family to discuss what we're doing next, then your opinion really doesn't matter that much.
Yeah.
You know, but it is. It's a scary thing. So I commend you for doing that. I wouldn't have done it. No, I'm kidding.
No, but I mean that's actually acceptable when people say, "I would have not done it." I'm like, I understand, and it's okay too. You know.
Yeah.
Because now what I've learned is exactly what you were saying. Like everybody has an approach to life, different.
Yeah.
It's a different approach. It's different needs, different want. What I've always kind of had in me was this want of doing something on my own. But I've been trained and told and everything like just work hard for somebody and you'll be rewarded. And then just get a good job at a good big company. You know, graduate school, graduate college. Like,
in this order.
In this order. You know, and don't try anything else out of that. Like that's how I was trained all my life.
Yeah.
Like around not just my family, but people around me who grew up with. And then you get to US, you're like, oh, you're an immigrant. Now really work hard, like really do stuff. Yeah. So they accept you better. You know, there's all these like subtle kind of ways of you thinking. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, I kind of want to do my own thing. And then it goes against everything that you were thought. Yeah. And then I was like, you know what? I just got to look at that and just kind of go for it.
Yeah.
Because I could go and list all the things that I shouldn't do. Because I shouldn't do it. I have a family, I have 2 kids. You know, it's like everything could just go south in a month or 2. Like, and then all of a sudden there's all these, like, all the things that you got to go open an LLC or S Corp. You got to find your taxes. You got to pay for your insurance. You got to find insurance for your like all these things. You're like, no, it's better for me to just sit in my office and get my paycheck. Yeah, you know. But then you just have, you know what, put all that to the side and go one by one. Okay, make the choice. Yeah. Do it, and then solve one problem at a time.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And then go for it, and don't think of it as like a big deal or a dream stopper, and you just keep going. You know.
Well, I think a lot of people, they sit like in the middle of comfort, right? Like anything, like you have to get your own insurance and taxes. I wouldn't do, that's a lot, right? Yeah. But like you said, one at a time, puts you out of the center, more towards the edge of the comfort zone.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so once you get to the edge, you're like, okay, now what do I do? Well, now I have to do that. And it stretches that comfort zone. Yeah. Right? And so that's what you're doing. And so when people do say, man, I wouldn't do that, if they follow it up, I think, with like, but you've inspired me to do that. I think it's a different story, right? Yeah. Now it's like, I am doing something right. If I'm able to inspire by just my actions, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And if I'm scared, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yes. Yeah. There was actually a guy that came talk to me. He's like, Felipe, do you have time to chat? And I was like, yeah. He's like, man, like, how did your wife deal with this? And like, how did you, oh my God, like, that's crazy. And then I was like, thinking like, oh, okay, like, where is this conversation going? You know? And then he said exactly that. He's like, dude, that's so inspiring.
Yeah.
Like, wow, man, like, congrats.
Yeah.
That's so, he was genuinely inspired. Yeah. He was just like, man, I salute you for that. You know, like, that's amazing. Like, and you could tell in his eyes, like, and then that made me feel better. I was like, oh, okay, like, at least that's a huge win. I inspired one person.
Yeah, no,
you know?
I inspired other people. They just haven't had a chance to talk to you yet.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, so and then you, like we were saying before, like when everybody says like, how do you feel?
Yeah.
So it's been 2 weeks that I officially am out of like full-time job, and I have my agency, and I'm working with Live Nation. I'm handling their YouTube channel, and it's been 2 weeks, and everybody's like, how do you feel? Like, oh man, how do you feel? I'm like, dude, I don't know. I'm scared still.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing the best I possibly can every single day. Yeah. I'm looking at everything YouTube every day. I'm researching more. I'm uploading. I'm seeing how it goes. I know exactly minutes of the videos, when they do well, when they don't do well, why. I'm doing YouTube thumbnails. I'm designing them. I hire somebody to design. I hire a guy to edit videos. Clip this part, clip that part, post everything. Let's see how it goes. I'm having like competitors, how they do it. So I'm going deep inside to be like, Felipe is the absolute best person at this, or the absolute best I can be now. Yeah. And then tomorrow I'll be a little bit better, and then tomorrow I'll be a little bit better, and then like, okay, so now what can I do to better my relationship with them? Yeah. So now I do a weekly newsletter that came out today for the internal team.
Make sure you sign up for it.
Sign up for it. Like news of the week on YouTube. Yeah. What is performing well? What I'm watching. Yeah. In the lab, what are we working on? What are we testing? So just like you said, it's really a good analogy that you put. Like you go to the edge of your comfort zone, now it stretches a little bit more. Yeah. And you go to the other edge, it stretches a little bit more. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, now if something when you look back, like, man, I went up. I'm high. I'm way high,
I think that's exactly it, though. Like, when you look back, you'll see the growth, right? It's really easy for you to have stayed at one company and just sat there, but you're not going to grow. And this is where the growth is, and it's where the scary things happen. But again, you're going to look back and be like, I'm glad I did it when I did it. Yeah, yeah. Right? Yeah. And the other thing, too, is when people are asking, like, what'd your wife think? Or, how's your family? Like, how'd you handle the taxes? There's two types of people. One is somebody like, I would never do that. Like I wouldn't put my wife through that. There are other people, like you said, who are asking because maybe they want to have that conversation with their wife. Yeah. Or
it's absolutely that.
Or they're scared and how did he handle the taxes? They're doing it from a curiosity standpoint. I think that just in life is something that people need to move forward with curiosity. Yes. And not judgment. Like, things you don't know about, right? Whether it's something political or sports or social media. If you don't know about it, be curious and do what you're doing. Yeah. Who's doing it better right now? What are they doing? What's the length? All that stuff, I think, feeds into our growth as well. Yes. So.
And that's exactly it. That's how I think. It's like, let's find somebody that do better. That doesn't mean they're going to like eliminate me. Right. There's space for everybody.
Yeah, there's room for everybody.
There's room for everybody. Like, let me learn from that person. Okay, hey, how do you do that? Do you mind if I pick your brain? No, it's okay if you're not. But like, I would love to pick your brain because this is how I'm doing. This is how I would like to do. This is how I maybe copy you here and there. Is that cool? Copy me too if you need. But that's why this podcast for me is so important. Yeah. It's because I want to pick people's brain. Like you and I we just have lunch just to pick each other's brain but I want to have an excuse to pick people's brain and learn from them. Every time we talk, I learn a lot more or get inspired more. So that's why it's like I'm doing here. It's like Curious Felipe, like just figuring it out how to learn from people. And I just love talking to people, but like I think that's it. Like there's room for everyone to grow, and if we just learn from each other, support each other, and I think you'll be best for everyone. Obviously, there are people who are malicious. Like they're like because if there are good people, that means there are bad people, right? But I think the good outweigh the bad all the time in quantity, in everything, in terms of people. But if you're genuinely curious, just because you want to learn, then there's no losing. Yeah, there's no losing.
But I think isn't that what art is? Like you come from an art background, right? Art inspires art, right? And so you look to things for inspiration. How is that any different than watching other people? And like you said, I like how they do this. I'm going to take that. And I hope you take what I do, right? Yeah. You're inspiring other people all just to make this bigger and better.
Right.
And like you said, there's room for everybody. I think we have this notion that, there's a table, right? And there's only 20 chairs at the table,
Right.
There's no room for other people. You're trying to fit in more chairs. Like, rather than try and fit in more chairs, why don't you build a bigger table?
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So we can all be here because now there's other needs, right? 15 years ago, or even 10 years ago, however long, TikTok wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Right. And 20 years ago, you were looking at MySpace, and that's gone. So everything changes, and we have to constantly be changing with that. But there are certain skill sets that come into they're the through line that apply to all of them. So
yeah. I was just talking to a friend of mine too. Ryan was the other episode, and we were talking about how, like, for me with kids, I learned one of the biggest thing I've learned is that, like, life is just phases.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I broke it down with sometimes we're in the phase of the newborn, especially for women. They think, man, this is no. They don't think they realize quick that it's really hard for them. So their mind, and then I went through it too because I've always been so involved. But you get to a point where you're like, man, this is forever. This is gonna suck forever. like when am I gonna sleep more than 4 hours?
Yeah.
But you've only done it for like 2 months. 3 months.
Oh, it's forever.
But you think, when is this gonna stop? And then you go through and you're like, oh, it got better, and it gets better, and then it gets better, and then you're like, oh, it's just phases. It's just phases. Like the kids go through phases. And our life is like that too. We go through a phase. Our lives. Our lives just go through phases too. Like, oh, this is a phase now that I needed to do full-time employment to learn all these things, to like grow my want to not do this or learn from this where I could apply to my own thing. And then my other phase is like, now I'm doing a little bit of my own thing, but really getting to a leadership role and it's helping me and all that. Like, and now my phase is like entrepreneur. And then in this entrepreneur phases, I could be like, now I'm learning from people. Now I'm like teaching people while I'm learning from them. Now I'm just learning, so it's just like all these things that if I treat it like phases, would be a lot easier for me to approach it and face it than just think like, now I'm an entrepreneur for the rest of my life. I don't know if later on I'm just, maybe it'll be something else.
Right. How did you approach it then? Because yes, you go through all these phases, right? But you also had the added part of the family life, right? So when I met you, you didn't have the wife and kids, right?
Yeah.
So how did that transition go from you being an independent person and now you have the family?
Right.
Like, how did your mentality change with your job? Like, because there's two different things going on.
There are. I think. So you know this. I was a completely different person. Like, not in the terms of like who I am.
Your root.
Yeah. But like my attitude was different.
Yeah.
My attitude was completely different. Now I'm more of a like, how can I be better?
Okay.
How can I be a better person?
Okay.
Every day. Like, am I treating everybody right? Am I listening to people? Am I talking to them the proper way? Am I treating them respectfully in who they are? Am I trusting them to be who they are and respecting that? Am I being the best person I am so my kids could see that, so my wife could see that?
Yeah.
Can I be 100% so my wife can be 100%? It's not 50-50, it's 100-100.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and with all these categories, like, can I be better as a father? Can I be better as a husband? Can I be better as a friend?
Yeah.
Can I be better as a worker?
And
can I be better as an entrepreneur? And then all these categories are like fitting into me trying to be a better person. That's why I kind of did this parallel thing where like I want to be a better person for my family and I want to be a better person for financial reasons. And then recently I'm like, wait, not just financial reasons, for like a better life, because you could be really rich and miserable. That's probably the easiest way to get miserable, just when you prioritize money over everything. Like, how do I prioritize a happy life, where I do for work is something I enjoy, where I do for work is something that like I'm proud of, and it doesn't stress the fuck out of me, so I'm not like a worse person in the family. and or as a husband and or as a father, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Like how can I get all these like categories to be unified?
Yeah.
Not like, oh, you're great at business but not great at family.
Right,
Oh,
right.
you're great at business but not what you like
Yeah.
doing.